Hello, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Spitfire Mark XII project. In this one is being hotly anticipated, judging by some of the comments, of the conversion itself. And here I am with the Laminar flow design cages, just using a razor saw on the corners. Wear a mask. It's the dust it's still resin, it's still toxic. And then with an old set of nippers, I can nip the rest of the cage away, and that just slides off, revealing the parts in all their glory. Some of the parts, like the propeller blades, you can literally just snap off. They'll be cleaned up with a hobby blade at the appropriate time. Some of the parts, need nippers. Just be careful, it's all a bit brittle, so just do a few, and then when you can, you could just snap off the parts, and then with a sanding stick or a knife blade, just clean them up. You can see there I've got a little pot. I'm just going to remove everything and just put everything into the pot. Okay, the meat, if you like, of the sandwich is the nose. I just went in with a hobby blade in parts and a razor saw in other parts. Just a few swipes. You just need to weaken it, and then you can just snap that off as well. See, struggling a little bit, but you know, we'll just snap that off. Obviously that's going to leave some residue, and it's a very, very easy cleanup. We'll just go in with a hobby blade and a bit of a sanding stick here and there, and just clean all that up. The underside now, I've marked out where the cut needs to go for the oil cooler. And this set, if you think you've actually got the Mark V C set for the Tamiya Spitfire Mark IX that Matthew also does, this bit's going to be relevant for that as well. I do have one, and I will be doing that at some point. But it's a simple cut. It's just this one cut here. Just using the very sharp hobby blade, moderate pressure, not too hard. I don't want to deform the plastic too much, and then we can just snap that off, and there we go. It's as easy as that. Just a little bit of a cleanup here and there, and that's ready for the 3D printed part. Here is that 3D printed part. It's been removed and cleaned up, and I'll just dry fit that, and you can see it just clicks into place. You know, the fit is great. Gluing it in, it's much easier when you've done the wheel wells, and that's going to help to anchor it in position. So it's glued in place initially with super glue. You can see the tabs there on the inside that will hold it in place as well, and then I'll go in and I'll back that up with some 5-minute epoxy. That's going to give it real strength, and I'm going to got real confidence now that that's not going to split or anything. I'm not going to crack any of the joints. Super glue can be a little bit brittle, but the 5-minute epoxy will really help to reinforce that 3D printed resin bit. That shiny, wet-looking stuff is the dry epoxy. And just a quick coat of primer because I couldn't resist, and it looks seamless. Gluing the wings together. We're not quite there with the conversion yet. Lots of pegs required. Onto the wingtips now. Now, not normal clipped wings for a Spitfire. These, I think they were made of wood, but if you look, they are much flatter. There's no landing light on there, so they're not tapered, and I didn't think I could get away with modifying the kit clipped wingtips, so I actually cut down the standard wingtips. I've got a guide there with the tape, and that's all you need. It's very thin, and I'll put some epoxy filler, some Mr. Hobby epoxy filler in the middle, and then we'll just sand it to shape, but it just glues on. And when the filler is dry, we'll just sand it to shape, referring to the photos, looking for accuracy, and there it is, all finished. Tamiya black wash, really good for the radiators. That's the kit part. No need for any aftermarket there. And this is the 3D printed part for the oil cooler on the other side. It takes a wash really nicely. Such fine mesh. Just beautiful part. You can see the detail there. But we will enhance that with a dry brush of metallic, and this is the Ammo dry brush paint. If you haven't used it, I highly recommend it. It's brilliant stuff. And we can pop that into the oil cooler housing. You can see it's keyed there with that sort of letter T. You can see how brilliant that looks in there. That was painted medium sea grey on the inside, and then again there's another key, and that will just click into place on the underside. We can finish off the wings with the kit parts. See, this is the radiator going in, and you can see that mesh, how fantastic that looks. And there are the finished wings. So that effectively is part one of the conversion finished. Part two is the nose. Now, no matter how refined these 3D printed parts are, and even though they weren't visible to the naked eye, I did polish the resin part. So that's the metallic alclad gone on. You can't really see much of a texture, if any. So you could get away with not doing this step, but you know, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand it now. So if I just give that a little gentle rub with the sanding sponge, you can see the texture there. So it's just rubbed the paint off the high spots, and what I'm going to do, this is 1000 grit. I mean, it looks great for wood grain, doesn't it? Under paint and matte varnish, you're not going to see it anyway, I don't think. But you know, belt and braces, let's do it. And the whole nose was polished, and that removed any of the printing lines. Like I say, I don't think this is strictly necessary, but it's literally a 10-minute job. So you may as well. Now this side of the fuselage here, you can see the bulkhead. That's the kit bulkhead. And the 3D printed parts are designed to go in there. But you can see I've got a little bit of a spring there, and that will create a gap and probably some wing root problems as well. So this is the dry fit just going on. So it's out with my Swedish blue clamps and some glue, and I'll just put that glue in there, let that set up, and then squeeze it with the Swedish blue clamps, and then we'll let that dry, and then we can stick the nose on. Can't resist a dry fit. You can see the scaffolding there at the back with the pins in the nose and how it lines up with the holes in the kit bulkhead, and the fit is superb. The main event. Now, in hindsight, I had a little bit of a step underneath, and you'll see the rectification work I had to do. I think on my Mark 14 conversion and my Mark 5 conversion, I'm going to glue the fuselage to the wings and then put the nose in, and then I can do a little bit of fettling then, because there's a hairline step on the top where the nose is slightly high, and we are talking a fraction of a millimetre. It's almost imperceptible visually, but you can feel it with your finger, and that created, I think, a little bit of a step underneath. There might have been a little bit of play there in there, but anyway, just backing up the glue, I just bought some of these super glue tip things. It's absolutely brilliant, actually. Big fan of those. One of those why didn't I think of that sooner type of things. But even though the fit is exceptional, it's not perfect. Just a hairline gap. I could have used Mr. Surfacer, but decided just to go in with the Deluxe Perfect Plastic Putty. And you see there, I've just masked off just to preserve all the surface detail. I don't want anything being clogged up. And then with a cotton bud and a bit of water, we can go in and clean everything up. Right, here is that little step I had. So the nose part was a little bit too shallow. So I put in a lot of Mr. Surface Plastic Putty and then sanded it to shape. And that just blends in the nose. And to be honest, it's under paint and weathering, it's pretty much imperceptible. A little bit of a gap at the back. Nothing to do with the conversion parts, it's just the kit itself. A little bit of super glue on the wing root helped, if I'm honest. And then we've got this little air scoop on the nose. See a separate part, and you can see how thin that is. And there's a little recess, you just run the super glue in and then you just glue the scoop in. It's that simple, it's really well designed. Right, magnet time. So deviating from the instructions, adding the magnets, but the magnet was a little bit proud. So I just went in with this sanding disc, created a lot of sparks, looked really cool. I hope that looks cool. But it means that the nose cone can just snap into place, and that's really good for me because I've got to get this back to the UK in my suitcase. Master barrels, so they're just keyed with a sanding sponge, just very worn fine sanding sponge, and then I'm just gluing those in with 5-minute epoxy putty, again just for strength. Super glue can be a little bit brittle, so just sending them up with the 5-minute epoxy putty. Now you can see there's a seam down the top of the canopy, and I'll just show you how I dealt with that. So initially it scraped away with a sharp scalpel blade, and then we'll go in with a flory sanding stick and polisher just to polish everything back. Using the green side first, and then we'll use the white side and we'll just buff that up. But you're slightly milky. Now you can dip it in future or equivalent, but I decided to polish it using my display polisher. So this is the Tamiya polishing compound. I did, was it fine and super fine or fine and finish? And that display tool's brilliant. And you can see how beautiful that looks. And there we are. That is the construction. It's a very simple conversion. The detail is beautiful. It fits fantastic. And I can't wait to get painting, which is going to be in the next episode. So I'll see you then.